There are some stories you never forget, not because they're dramatic or because someone told them to you, but because they happened to you. And once they do, you don't get to walk away the same. In tonight's video, you'll hear 4 true horror stories, not fiction, not urban legends. Just real people caught in moments they never thought they'd have to survive. From a late night assault in a New York bus terminal, to a brutal ambush in an empty parking lot, from old bullies returning with something darker in mind, to a scream that shattered the quiet of the New Jersey forest. These are the kinds of experiences that don't just leave bruises, they leave shadows. They leave you checking behind you even in daylight. So put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and remember, you're never truly alone, especially when you think you are. Story 1. The Nightmare at the Bus Station. The Shadow Behind Me. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. It doesn't bring peace. It brings dread. It's the kind of silence that makes the hairs on your neck stand up, the kind that hides something just out of sight. Something that's been waiting. This happened to me in New York, a city that never sleeps, but that night the shadows were wide awake. It started as a good night. I had just finished watching a football game at Madison Square Garden. The energy was electric. Fans were cheering, bars were buzzing. After the game, I met up with a few friends at a pub nearby. We had a couple of beers, nothing crazy, but just enough that I knew I shouldn't be behind the wheel. So, like any responsible adult, I decided to take the train. I figured I'd head over to the Port Authority bus terminal and catch a late ride back to New Jersey. That's where the night shifted. As I walked into the terminal, I noticed something immediately. It was quiet, too quiet. No people, no announcements, no background hum. Just the cold buzz of a few ceiling lights flickering overhead. I remember thinking, this doesn't feel right. But I kept walking. Just a few more steps to the boarding area. Then I could relax. I never made it. I don't remember hearing footsteps, no warnings. Just a violent shove from behind that sent me face first to the ground. And then the kick started. At least 3 of them. Men I'd never seen before, boots slamming into my back, my ribs, my legs. I curled into myself, trying to shield my head. I heard whispers, harsh and fast, in a language I didn't recognize. They weren't yelling. They were calm, organized. One of them knelt beside me and ripped the wallet out of my back pocket. Another grabbed my phone. They rifled through my ID, muttering things to each other. It wasn't just a random mugging. It felt like they were looking for something. And then something cold hit the floor beside me. A knife. Big, jagged. It had a strange symbol etched onto the blade, something like a triangle inside a circle, or maybe a mark I just didn't understand. They didn't use it. They didn't have to. Its presence alone was enough to paralyze me. And just like that, they were gone. No footsteps running away, no doors slamming, just the echo of silence filling back in around me as if nothing had happened. I was left on the floor, bruised, dizzy, gasping for air. But somehow I got up. I reached for my phone, gone. So I stumbled to the wall, found the emergency intercom and called for help. My voice was shaking as I spoke to the operator. I barely remember what I said, just that I needed police. An ambulance. Minutes later, red and blue lights filled the terminal. They carried me out on a stretcher. I was treated for a fractured rib, a dislocated shoulder and deep bruising. but the real damage that came after. Because even once my body healed, I couldn't shake the fear. That knife, that symbol, that feeling that they weren't just robbing me. They were sending a message. The police asked questions, took my statement, but nothing ever came of it. No arrests, no suspects. Just a strange, brutal assault in the shadows of a place millions walk through every year. Now, I can't walk into a station without scanning every corner. I check over my shoulder constantly. When I hear footsteps behind me, my whole body goes tense. That night made me realize something. It doesn't matter how busy the city is. It doesn't matter how familiar the place seems. Darkness doesn't care where you are. It only cares that you're alone. And when it finds you, it doesn't just leave bruises. It leaves shadows that follow you home. If you've ever been attacked, followed, or just felt that something wasn't right, trust that feeling. Because sometimes it's the only warning you'll get. And remember, in places full of people, danger often hides where no one's looking right behind you. Story 2. The Black Shadow in the Parking Lot, a terrifying night in New York. You never really think you'll be the target. You walk through crowds surrounded by lights and people, and somehow you think that keeps you safe. But I learned something that night in New York. It only takes 10 seconds of silence for your entire world to fall apart. It was supposed to be a great evening. I had just watched a hockey game at Madison Square Garden, the Rangers versus the Bruins. The stadium was packed, the energy was insane, and for a while I felt invincible, caught in the noise, the cheering, the adrenaline. But all that faded the second I walked out the doors. I hadn't parked near the stadium. I knew the post-game traffic would be hell. So I parked in a smaller, quieter lot about 15 minutes away. It seemed smart at the time. I remember the walk vividly. The sounds of the crowd got quieter with every step. The bright lights dimmed. The buildings got taller, darker. Soon it was just me and my footsteps echoing down the concrete sidewalk. As I reached the lot, I noticed something strange. No other cars, no security, no one in sight. I fished for my keys, trying not to let the unease sink in. But before I could even press the unlock button, something slammed over my face, rough fabric, a headscarf or a cloth bag I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. And then the beating began. Boots connected with my chest ribs legs. I hit the ground hard, the back of my head slamming into the cold pavement. I couldn't scream, could barely move. I felt hands searching through my coat, digging into my jeans. They found my wallet, my phone, my car keys. All the while I could hear them talking. Fast, low voices. Spanish, maybe. They were arguing, whispering about what to do next. Whether to take the car, whether to leave me. At one point, I thought I was going to die right there in that lot. I could feel the blood in my mouth. One of my ribs was definitely broken. I couldn't breathe without stabbing pain shooting through my side. I just laid there, still, trying not to provoke them, trying to survive. Eventually they walked away. No car engine, no footsteps running, just gone. It took me a full minute to even open my eyes. When I did, all I saw was concrete and blood. Somehow I pulled myself upright and stumbled to the edge of the lot. There were no people, no stores, just a grimy payphone next to a vending machine with broken lights. I dragged myself to it and called 911. When the police arrived, I was barely coherent. An ambulance took me to the hospital where they treated a fractured rib, a busted lip and heavy bruising. But that wasn't the part that stayed with me. The worst part was the look one of them gave me right before leaving. He knelt next to me, leaned in close, and whispered something in my ear that I'll never forget. "Next time, we won't be so gentle." Then he smiled. That smile, it haunts me. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even cruel. It was casual, like he'd just made a promise. And for weeks after that, I felt it. Like I was being watched. Like the attack wasn't random. Like they knew me. The police found my car a few days later, abandoned and stripped. My phone and wallet were never recovered. I moved out of New Jersey a year later. I couldn't be in that city anymore. Every parking lot, every shadow, every unfamiliar voice made my stomach twist. Made me feel like I was back there on the pavement, blinded, helpless. Now I never walk alone at night. I don't park in quiet corners. I carry a personal alarm pepper spray and sometimes a knife. Because the scariest part of that night wasn't the pain. It wasn't even the near-death experience. It was realizing that in a city full of people, you can still be utterly alone. And those who want to hurt you, they wait for that moment when you stop paying attention. If you've ever let your guard down in what seemed like a safe place, this is your reminder to stay alert, because danger doesn't always come with warning signs. And remember, the shadows don't follow you home unless you walk alone long enough. Story 3. The bullies return again. Some people think bullying ends after high school, that once you move on, the past stays behind. But they don't understand. Some ghosts don't haunt houses, they haunt you. Their names were Frankie and Johnny. Even now, just saying those names makes my skin crawl. Back in school, they weren't just bullies, they were predators. They didn't shove you in the hall and call you names. They beat you until you bled. They laughed while doing it. And for whatever reason, I was their favourite target. I endured years of torment, bruises, broken things, both physical and emotional. Counsellors pretended to listen. Teachers turned the other way. Even when I switched schools, even when my family moved to a quieter suburb in rural New Jersey, I still felt them behind me, watching. But I never imagined they'd actually follow. It was winter break when it happened. My best friend Jaden had come up to visit. We'd been into geocaching, kind of like treasure hunting using GPS. There was a well-known trail deep in the woods behind my parents' property. One of the cache locations was near a frozen waterfall, beautiful, remote, and usually empty. That day the air was cold and still. The woods were silent except for the crunching of snow under our boots. We were laughing about something stupid when Jaden stopped. He looked over my shoulder and his smile dropped. I turned around. Standing behind us, maybe 30 feet away, were Frankie and Johnny. My blood went cold. I don't know how long they had been following us. I don't know how they found us. But there they were. And they looked different. Not older, not changed, just emptier. Like whatever humanity they once had was long gone. Frankie had something in his hand, a knife. Its blade caught the sunlight flashing like a warning. Johnny didn't say anything. He just moved. Fast. He grabbed me and shoved me hard toward the edge of the icy cliff. My boots slid. My arms flailed. Behind me was a 20-foot drop into frozen rocks and rushing water. Jaden tried to intervene, but Frankie blocked him. He didn't even raise the knife. He just watched that same sick amusement in his eyes as when we were kids. Johnny pressed me to the edge. His breath was cold against my face. He whispered, "No one's here to save you this time," and I believed him. But then crack a gunshot shattered the silence. All four of us froze. Another shot rang out, this time closer. From the trees, a figure emerged. A man in hunting gear holding a rifle, eyes wide and furious. He shouted, "Step away from him." Now! Frankie didn't wait. He grabbed Johnny and bolted into the woods, gone within seconds. Like shadows retreating into the dark, the man lowered his weapon, helped me off the ice, and checked my head for injuries. He was calm, like he'd seen worse, and maybe he had. He walked us back to the trailhead and waited with us while we called the police. Jaden and I gave full statements. We told them everything about the years of bullying, about what just happened. Turns out, Frankie and Johnny had already been on probation for something else. Assault, I think. Our report was enough to get them expelled, and eventually they were arrested. But even after the trial, after the sentencing, after they were locked away, I never felt safe again. Because now I knew some people don't just grow up and move on. They grow darker, more determined, more dangerous. The woods used to be a place I loved. Now I won't step into them alone. Sometimes late at night I still hear that whisper. No one's here to save you this time. But here's the truth. Someone was there. And that one act of courage from a complete stranger saved my life. If you've ever been hunted by your past, you're not alone. The pain is real, but so is survival. And remember, sometimes the scariest people aren't strangers in the dark. They're the ones who already know your name. Story 4. A scream in the forest at night. The haunting escape in New Jersey. Some places hold echoes not of sound but of fear. And once you've screamed there once, your voice has broken the stillness. It's never just your memory that stays. The forest remembers too. I grew up in rural New Jersey. Our house sat near a dense patch of woods, the kind kids aren't supposed to wander into at night. But, of course, that's exactly where we always ended up. My best friend Jaden and I were obsessed with geocaching. If you've never done it, imagine hiking out into the middle of nowhere just to find a hidden plastic box with someone's initials and a trinket inside. It was like treasure hunting for introverts. That winter, we decided to try one of the tougher locations, a small cache near a frozen waterfall deep in the forest behind my parents' property. We'd heard it was difficult to find and rarely visited. Perfect. The day was freezing, the air sharp with cold, but the woods were still and strangely peaceful. No animals, no wind, just snow crunching beneath our boots and the sound of the GPS tracker beeping quietly in my hand. We were maybe 30 minutes in when I started to feel off, like we weren't alone. I glanced over my shoulder every few steps. Nothing. Just bare trees, jagged rocks, and the grey sky pressing down. We reached the edge of the waterfall just before sunset. The stream had frozen mid-fall, creating jagged icicles like spears jutting from the rock. It was beautiful. Silent. Then the silence shattered. Behind us, branches snapping, fast footsteps in the snow. We turned. Frankie, Johnny. 2 names I hadn't said out loud in years. 2 people I thought were long gone. But they were there. Alive. Smiling. And worse than I remembered. Frankie had something in his hand. Not just a knife, a hunting blade. Dirty. Serrated. Johnny said nothing. He grabbed me by the jacket and shoved me hard, straight toward the edge of the waterfall. I slipped. My boots skidded on the ice. I dropped the GPS and barely caught myself before tumbling over the cliff. Below me, 20 feet of frozen air and jagged rocks. I screamed. Loud. A raw, panicked sound that didn't even feel like it came from me. Frankie stepped closer. His grin was crooked, almost casual, like this was all just a game to him. And then, a second sound cut through the forest. Gunshot. Everyone froze. Another gunshot, louder, closer. From the trees, a man stepped into view. He was wearing orange hunting gear, holding a rifle, and his voice boomed, "Back away. Now." Frankie and Johnny didn't wait. They bolted. One tripped over a log, scrambled up, and disappeared into the trees. Gone. The man approached us carefully. He asked if we were okay, then helped me up from the edge. My knees were bleeding, my hands shaking, but I was alive. He walked us back toward the edge of the property, then stayed while we called the police. I don't remember the entire walk back, only how quiet it was, how I kept expecting to hear footsteps behind us again. The police later found Frankie and Johnny hiding behind an abandoned trailer deep in the woods. They were arrested, expelled from school, and eventually convicted for the assault. But that night never left me. Even now, years later, I sometimes wake up in a sweat. The image of Frankie's smile burned into my memory. The feeling of cold air rushing beneath me, the sound of my scream echoing into the woods. I don't go geocaching anymore. I barely even hike. Because I learned something that night. The most dangerous people aren't strangers. They're the ones who already know where to find you. If you've ever been in a place that once felt safe until someone shattered it, you're not alone. Share your story. Let others know they're not the only ones still looking over their shoulder. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying scream is the one that finally gets heard. You've just heard 4 real horror stories, moments that change someone's life forever. And while the bruises may fade, the memory doesn't. Because what's truly terrifying isn't the violence itself. It's how quickly it can happen. How little it takes for normal to turn into nightmare. A walk to your car, a trip to the forest, a quiet ride home from the city. All it takes is 1 second, one wrong turn, one person who means harm. But here's the truth. For every story like this, there's someone who survived it. Someone who fought back, got up, and shared their experience so others could stay alive, stay aware. If you've ever lived through something like this, if you've ever felt that chill run down your spine and couldn't explain why, if you've ever been lucky enough to walk away even barely from something horrifying, you are not alone. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you have a story that's been haunting you, tell it. You never know who might need to hear it. Until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and never underestimate the dark, because it's always watching. Ein.